Hello, my friends. Today, let's start with the fact that Trump has effectively issued an ultimatum to Russia, giving them 50 days to stop the war. Even Russian propagandists are now talking about this ultimatum.
Here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia, but we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine. I would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war. It's not my war. I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end.
But the real question is why give Russia 50 more days when they've already had half a year? That's hard to understand. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Trump made the right call? Trump was also asked what he'd do if the attacks escalate, and he admitted he doesn't. No, he just wants the war to end.
How far are you willing to go in response?
In what? In what?
How far are you willing to go if Putin were to escalate, send more bombs in the coming days?
Don't ask me a question like that. How far? I want to get the war settled. They're not Americans that are dying in it. And, you know, I have a problem, and JD has a problem. It's a stance that he's had for a long time. They're not Americans dying, but there are a lot of people dying and on something that should be able to be settled. And we all agree with that. This group of people, you know, we want to defend our country, but, you know.
And yesterday, Zelensky had a call with Trump. He confirmed that support for Ukraine will be increasing. We discussed with the president the necessary tools and decisions to provide better protection for our people from Russian strikes and to strengthen our positions. We are ready to work as productively as possible to achieve peace. We agreed to keep in touch more frequently and continue coordinating our efforts. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, America. Also, yesterday, it was reported that the first aid package will be worth $10 billion. Ukraine will receive US weapons worth $10 billion as part of the first aid package, according to Axios. The weapons will be sold by the US to NATO allies, but the deliveries ultimately meant for Ukraine will include missiles, air defense systems, and artillery shells. As you can see, first they spoke about $300 million, then $500 million, and now it's already $10 billion. So this aid package is going to be a serious one. And clearly it will include not only missiles, but also a wide range of other weapons. We know, of course, that not all the details are made public, but the real question is when all of this military aid will finally arrive in Ukraine. And NATO's Secretary General mocked Russia's so called negotiation team, saying they didn't take peace talks seriously at all. We pressured the Ukrainians to send a serious delegation to Istanbul, and they did. The Russians sent some historian. But if we sum up all of Trump's recent moves, they're still not strong or effective enough. Let's break down Trump's latest statement on the issue. Trump essentially opposed the implementation of Senator Graham's law that would have imposed 500% tariffs. Instead, he said he's ready to introduce 100% tariffs without needing further legislative approval. Overall, Trump's tone wasn't aggressive. He expressed hope for peace through negotiations, emphasizing that it's Russia that isn't ready for such a step yet. He also refused to call Putin a killer, although he did criticize him for continuing the war in Ukraine and bombing cities. Trump didn't impose new sanctions immediately. Instead, he gave Putin around 50 days to negotiate a deal, a deadline that ends in late August. A lot can change on the battlefield in Ukraine and globally during that time. Interestingly, Axios reported that Putin told Trump about plans for a major offensive within 60 days to try and reach the borders of the four occupied regions. So, in effect, Trump gave Putin time to try and carry out his threat. To be honest, after all the tough talk and bold promises, people were expecting much harsher actions. There was talk of 500% tariffs, seizing Russian assets, massive arms shipments, but in reality, Trump just gave Putin 50 more days to make a deal. Even the Russian stock market went up after that. So, overall, while it's true that weapons will come, technically from the US, Trump still seems to be going easy on Russia and clearly isn't trying to stop the war. Moreover, it's now been reported that despite the promise to deliver 17 Patriot systems, even the first one won't arrive for several months. That's just ridiculous. Clearly, Trump, just like before, is not helping Ukraine in the way it truly needs. Even the Washington Post criticized his actions. Trump's 50-day delay gives Putin a strategic advantage, time to strengthen his positions, pressure Europe, and deepen military ties with China and North Korea. Washington Post. Trump outlined new elements of his Ukraine policy, but observers note it still follows his usual tactic of delay, loud announcements with no decisive follow through. This delay gives Putin room to regroup, pressure allies, and prepare for escalation. Whether this marks a real turning point or just another postponement remains to be seen. So, friends, now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments, do you think Russia will be able to surround Pokrovsk and take the territory within those 50 days? Now, let's turn to the battlefield and start with the Pokrovsk direction. The situation here is clearly deteriorating. The front continues to collapse. Russian forces have fully captured Razine and Novotoretske. There are unconfirmed reports that they are also in Fedorivka, where Ukrainian troops are spotting and targeting them with drones. Russia claims to have taken control of Mayak, but the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed it yet. Today, we are seeing that Russian troops have reached the outskirts of Volodymyrivka and reportedly entrenched there. The situation is also worsening around Novoekonomichne, which is now under assault from two directions. The Ukrainian forces are holding the line for now, but Russian advances are being recorded in the area. Fierce battles are ongoing in Myrolюбівка, Promень, and Zelene. Russian troops are pushing toward the outskirts of Pokrovsk and attacking Udachne. Over 70 assaults were recorded in a single day. Critically, Russian forces have begun advancing near the village of Boikivka, so just beyond Novotoretske, which is already under their control. They claim to have entered the southern part of Boikivka. But here is what really matters. Beyond Boikivka, there are no more defensive lines, no villagers, only open fields. That means they could push toward the city of Biletske very quickly. The distance to the cities each is just 7.5 kilometers. If that happens, they could surround Pokrovsk from a much wider arc and create an even larger encirclement. Based on current movement, Russian forces appear to be heading straight toward Rodinske and Biletske. Even though maps show Ukrainian defensive lines in that area, it may not be enough, just like we saw near the Markove pond, where Russians already pushed through. In short, the situation is critical. In the Novopavlivka direction, Russian forces continue the assaults on Muravka and Oleksiivka. They are pushing through the area near the village of Zeleny Kut and are also attacking Novotoretske and Myrne. As for Myrne, the Ukrainian side hasn't yet confirmed the loss of the village, so we are still awaiting clarification. In the Velika Novosilka direction, Russian troops are also carrying out assaults near the villages of Shevchenko, Vilnepole, and Zelenepole. However, there are no changes to the front line in this sector so far. In the Huliaipole direction, it appears that Russian forces have already captured the village of Malynivka. There are video clips confirming the presence of Russians in the village, where they once again raised Russian flags, a familiar pattern. However, as usual, there is still no official confirmation from the Ukrainian side, so we'll have to wait. Aside from that, no new assaults have been reported along the rest of the front line in this area. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Russian troops are pushing through near Novodanilivka and close to Malysherbaki. It's also been reported that the Russians have fully taken over Kamianske. Ukrainian soldiers themselves have confirmed this by sharing videos of Russian troops being eliminated in the northern part of the village. Of course, this could indicate that assaults are ongoing and Ukrainian forces are striking back and preventing the Russians from fully securing their positions. But either way, the situation looks bad. The Russians are already present in the northern area, and it's likely only a matter of time before they entrench themselves. As before, they are throwing massive numbers of troops into these assaults. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces are attempting breakthroughs on the islands and are actively shelling Kherson. However, so far, the Ukrainian forces have been able to repel all attacks and the front line remains unchanged. It's clear that the Russians have increased the activity in this area and are trying to make gains, but they still haven't been able to cross the river. Now let's move to the Kostiantynivka direction. Although this front was previously collapsing rapidly, today we are seeing that it has stabilized. While the Russians still attempting breakthroughs, including near Chasiv Yar and are assaulting Stupochki, Pretechene, pushing in the area around Sherbinivka and attacking Yablunivka, Stepanivka, Rusin Yar, and Poltavka, Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks in this sector as well. For now, the front line remains unchanged. In the Siversk direction, Russian forces continue assaulting Serebryanka and are trying to break through in the areas of Grigorivka and Vyimka. However, the situation here remains stable. The Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks and no changes have been reported. In the Lyman direction, the Russians haven't decreased the activity despite still having no success, and they are storming Zarichne, Kolodyazi, Zelena Dolina, and attempting breakthroughs near Karpivka, Glushenkove, and Druzhelyubivka. At the same time, Russians claim that Zelena Dolina is under their control, but the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed this. According to the General Staff of Ukraine, fighting is still ongoing for the village. In the Borova direction, Russian forces are assaulting Kopanki, but there is no significant activity and the front line remains unchanged for now. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are assaulting Holubivka, pushing toward Petropavlivka, attacking Kolesnikivka, and attempting to break through near Stepovanovoselivka. As we can see, the intensity remains high, with 7 assaults reported in the past 24 hours, but no changes on the front line have occurred. In the Dvorichne direction, Russian forces are attempting to break through near Stroyevka and are trying to expand their control along the border. However, for now, the Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks and there have been no changes. In the Veliki Burluk direction, the Russians continue the assaults near Chuhunivka and are carrying out shelling, but there are no changes on the front line here either. However, Russian sources claim they are advancing closer to the village of Khatny. We are currently awaiting confirmation. In the Kharkiv direction, Russian forces continue to assault the village of Zelene, but activity remains relatively low. Only one assault was recorded in the past 24 hours and they achieved no success. In Vovchansk, one assault was also recorded during the day, but Ukrainian forces repelled it and the front line remains unchanged. In the Sumy direction, the Russians continue attacks near Novomykolaivka and Bilovody, attempting to breach the border, but they haven't made any gains, and the situation here also remains unchanged. In the Tiotkino area, Russian forces are also trying to break through into Ukrainian territory toward the village of Budky. However, for now, the Ukrainian forces are repelling all attacks and there are no changes along the front line. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Financial Markets Committee of the Russian State Duma stated that Trump's threat of sanctions hasn't scared them.
Life has shown that no sanctions against Russia bring results. On the contrary, they lead to Russia confidently moving forward, developing its economy, and carrying out a structural transformation of its national economy. As for relations with Ukraine, our position is well known. It's a peaceful, neutral country that engages in friendly cooperation with both Western countries and Russia. I'm confident that this goal will definitely be achieved and that the Ukrainian people themselves will come to this understanding. Therefore, any statements about tough sanctions against our country have no prospects. I'm confident that in 2 months everyone will realize this and start acting reasonably.
In reality, nothing has fundamentally changed. If sanctions are implemented at all, they'll come no sooner than in 50 days. If new weapons arrive, it won't be for at least a few months. So the struggle continues. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.